What's up guys? So today I'm showcasing a camping trip I did last year at the Dogwood Campground in Lake Arrowhead. Though it's a bit hard to get a reservation here, it's definitely worth it. This is one of my favorite campgrounds in Southern California, as the sites are quite large and are generously spaced throughout the campground. Even when car camping, I pack a lot of my stuff into the Gregory Paragon just to keep everything organized. And on this trip, I'm using a REI Passage 2 tent. I believe they've rebranded this a Trailmade 2 tent, and it's a bit heavier than a regular backpacking tent. But what I like about it is it's a bit more beefy material-wise, and it's got these wider diameter aluminum poles that crisscross at the top, providing a lot more structural stability compared to the hub junction designed poling systems. The Rainfly is a standard dome shape, and it's got two small vestibules on either side. And you may have noticed in my Big Bear video that it holds up to the rain quite well. I recall it was in the 50s and 60s at night, so my Big Agnes Repeat SL did the job. Here we can see the spaciousness of this two-person tent. My sleeping bag of choice was the Nemo Forte. It has a comfort rating of 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and theoretically it has these zippered gills down the front of it. I also brought this Sea Summit Thermalite Reactor Extreme and a Thermarest compressible backpacking pillow. Here's a few shots so you can get a sense of spaciousness of this tent. And one more thing to note on the Forte is that the Primaloft is a synthetic fill, but if the ambient temperature is anything higher than the 50s, I end up cooking in the bag and stripping down in the middle of the night. Walking by Site 15, it looked like it was one of the more smaller sites in the campground. One of the best features of this campground is that it has a walking trail around its perimeter. I don't believe this is the official trailhead, but whatever got me off the pavement was fine with me. Here we have a little water on the trail from California's wet 2022 and 2023. The San Bernardino Forest is this unlikely island rising out of the desert and grassland surrounding it on all sides. It's a southern Sierran paradise with its mixed coniferous forests of white fir, cedar, interior live oak, and the sugar and ponderosa pine trees, as well as dozens of wildflower species that you can see in the early spring. And according to AllTrails, this is a 3.3 mile loop if you do the entire thing. There is an option to get off the trail halfway through. Its lowest point is 5,486 feet, whilst its highest point is 5,791 feet. And though you are hugging the outer perimeter of the campground, you rarely see any signs of it, and it's quite an immersive experience, especially the parts where you go deeper and deeper into the woodland. Though on occasion you may hear the sounds of children playing at their sites, and of course per some of these clips you can hear helicopters. And here we have the money shot for this trail, a collection of granite boulders that likely tempt children to crawl upon. Here we have a distinct difference in coloring of the forest litter around the trail, which probably has something to do with these cedar trees you see. All in all, the trail is well maintained and well marked throughout, though I do remember from a trip before this one that somewhere in this area is a trail split, so always have your Gaia GPS app handy. This looks to be something of a drainage route. And here I'll give you guys a 360 tour of this spot so you can experience the immersion. And here we are at the halfway point of the trail. I ended up getting off the trail at this point and just walking down the roads next to the campsites back down to my campsite. Back at my place, everything looked well. It's hard to tell, but in this shot you may see that the bear locker has hardware for a padlock. And here you can see where I've got the tent set up. Behind my tent is a little bit of a drop-off with some floral barriers to keep animals from sneaking up behind me. And here you can see the barrier wall the campground has installed to keep the campfire area from eroding downwards. And here we are with the biodegradable soap and Sea to Summit pocket shower. I just filled it up halfway with the super cold water coming out of the potable faucets. Unfortunately, the canopy was so thick that there was no solar gain to be had. After the shower, it was kindling time. Here we are with the start of something good for later in the day. Next up, it's pad thai time. And I don't know if it's the salt, the heat, or just the outdoors, but these things always taste a lot better than they look. Here's a look at the REI FlexLight air chair. It folds up to a pack size smaller than a backpacking sleeping bag. And here's some unsuspecting wooden soldiers lining up to get my night started off proper. And a little bit of a rest and digest before hitting the fire button. The sunset struck its first golden chords of the evening, affording all the human hearts in their tiny angled shelters a sense of peace among their improvised community. And when the night falls, my lonely heart calls for a set of USB-powered Edison lights hooked up to my solar power bank. The trees eventually faded out to Rorschach diagrams of wooden ships, migratory birds, Easter Island statues. We camped to reunite with what we lost 10,000 years ago. Our focus on fire, food, and a warm place to sleep, and endless contemplation of the complex world around us, and existing at those very first steps took to eventually figure it all out. Alright folks, we'll see y'all on the next one. Camp Hike Live, California, outski.